because there was one main event that literally just kept. It wasn't like a multiple car crash. It was a multiple day, multiple car crash of information. Um, but I learned a lot. And I messaged you beforehand a couple days ago to prepare you slightly for this, mainly because I focus mainly on movies themselves, not so much the studios and the studio heads. I mean, there are studios that I can differentiate between the two. There are some that I prefer than others, but it's all based on the actual movies themselves. I don't really pay attention to the politics unless some story about it blows up and hits the headlines.
Sure.
And hot damn, has Warner Brothers and HBO been fucking getting them headlines all week long. And there were some things that started going down that were technically unpopular decisions. I was getting excited because I thought, finally, something's getting done. But then, so like at the point that I had messaged you, I was at like a high note. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. Now I'm not all the way back down to a low point, but I'm at that midpoint now after some shit from yesterday. Now, I'm not gonna sit here like I have been every week. I'm not gonna sit here and go into actual details of these comic book movies.
Sure.
But I think we can all agree, even if you watch these movies with a passing interest, uh, if we're gonna put tally marks on the battle between the DC movies and the Marvel movies, Marvel clearly, like, there's no contest. I'm not saying that DC doesn't have anything good, but this was spawned out of greed because of the success of the other.
Yep. Yep.
Now, apparently, a lot of all of the current DC planning and films and everything, this was under the former CEO. Let me see here. I typed down his name. Jason Kyler, I believe I'm pronouncing that Kyler, which makes me think of an old episode of Beavis and Butthead.
Sure.
But so he made all of the DC decisions that a lot of people don't like. He was also the one that made the big decision for the year of 2021, where all of the Warner Brother theatrical releases would hit the HBO Max streaming the same day. For that whole year, their whole lineup. You remember this? It was like what, Kong and Godzilla.
Yeah. All of that.
There was Mortal Kombat, the new that fucking piece of shit.
Still hadn't watched it.
Yeah, you're not missing much except for Kano. Watch it for Kano, and that's it.
Oh, that's an easy sell then. I love my Aussie folks.
But apparently now this is where it gets to the part where I don't really normally pay attention. I don't understand how a lot of this works. But apparently, when Homeboy set up that deal and made that happen, apparently that was a bad move. Not so much like, for me, where I'm just like, oh, good, I don't have to fucking go anywhere to watch. I kind of wanted to see Mortal Kombat. I understand that we pay for the subscription of HBO Max. I get that. But I would have been a little bit more upset if I would have planned my day around going to the theater to see that movie. So, worked well for us. In terms of reputations with other studios and companies and stuff, apparently that was a bad move. Because now talent didn't want to work with WB. Fucking other companies didn't want to, because they're like, if you're just going to dump all this shit on streaming, what's the point?
Can't really get bonuses for streaming.
Right. So it was like, I didn't think of it that way. But now that was pointed out, I'm like, oh, I can totally see how that would definitely be I understand why we're not doing that anymore. So not only, and then of course it was like, I'm like, well, of course, if this guy was making all the DC fucking choices and they were all terrible, then anything else that he was left in charge of would be fucking terrible, of course.
That's the linear thinking with that. Basically, is once somebody puts a hole in the boat, you think they're going to put 10 more in it.
Right. So they booted this dude out, obviously, kick him out, and then of course you got all this merger shit going on. And then they put this Zaslav guy in charge. This is the guy who's currently in charge of things. And he is fucking just kicking ass and taking names. He is a man with a plan.
Roadhouse.
Yeah, Well, hopefully whoever's in charge of the the current announcement that they made, not no.
That was bad timing on my part.
Yeah. But this guy, the big thing that happened first this week was the whole cancellation of this Batgirl movie. Now, there's a lot of things that were tied to this. And then I watched a lot of videos and I saw a lot of different perspectives on this. And I'm glad that I watched the ones that I watched because they weren't just straight up outrage. Because apparently, which is good because, like, I understand, I mean, I would like a Batgirl movie. I mean, the last time we fucking seen this shit was Alicia Silverstone and she's fucking just missing. That was the last time we saw her, right?
People forget about that because most people didn't make it to the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. She doesn't pop the suit on until, like, what, 5 minutes to the credits?
5 minutes to the credits, and then she does the run at the end.
But I would have been down with that. And then, of course, the main thing that they kept saying was coming out of this movie that I was really kind of excited to see. I know I said I wasn't going to get into these fucking movies, but it was going to be one of the big returns of Brendan Fraser. He was going to play Firefly. And I was like, that's going to be fucking awesome. Gone. And apparently Michael Keaton had some Batman shit to do in this movie as well.
That's the most painful.
Now, of course, immediately at surface value, everybody's like, well, what the fuck? You're gonna cancel this and just for no reason and not even put it on streaming and you're not gonna do anything about this Flash movie with the Ezra Miller situation. Like, you got a real situation on your hands and you're not doing anything. And then on surface value, yeah, I get it. Because honestly, that was my initial reaction. Because I'm like, but that was before I figured out why they got rid of why they cut Batgirl. One, it wasn't done. It was mostly done. In the vicinity of donehood. Not quite done. Flash
almost to completion. Somebody knocked on the door.
Yeah. The Flash is done, in the can, ready to go. Has been for almost 2 years. That's an investment that they're just been sitting on. They were waiting for COVID to blow over, and then another fucking storm happened, and that was Storm Ezra.
Hurricane Ezra just rolled through Hawaii.
But apparently, this Zaslav guy was just like, look, like, and apparently he's not being, like, cute about it. Like, he's being fucking direct as shit. And he's like, look, these movies have fucking sucked. And he's like, these characters deserve better. The fans of these characters deserve better. So if anything I see is below any type of acceptable quality, like, if it's not phenomenal, I'm not letting it fucking happen. And apparently, this Batgirl movie was a piece of shit.
If anyone wonders why a studio would do that, by the way, if you released it to streaming and it was bad, one, you'd probably have boycotts for the IP to be moved off of your studio, and the owners of that IP would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not going to make money with you. The other part of that is you could ruin someone's career over that, and not just one person. I'm not just talking actors. You could ruin the editor. You could ruin the sound guy. You could ruin you could ruin the people that you forget make the movies happen. And to see a studio head kind of do that or kind of look at it like that, that's good. Because very rarely, I very rarely will side with a studio head on anything, but to know that to be able to look at your product and say that takes a lot to do. And I'm for that to a point.
And you want to know, so I'll take it even a step further. Now, some people are saying try to read between the lines, but from everything I've heard about this guy, I think he says what he means.
Yeah.
He even went out of his way to say it wasn't because of the actors. Like
That's
he said all of the failures were on the company side.
Fuck. That never fucking happens.
Yeah.
So all right, I'll buy into that then, just because they very rarely throw their own studio under the bus like that. And
no,
you know what?
That's because he's like, this was all this shit was greenlit and allowed to happen under old regime. He's like, I would have never he's like, it's not that he doesn't want Batgirl. He's like, we can do a Batgirl. It's just that it can't be done this way. It needs to be done better, is what he's saying. And yeah.
It reminds me of what Roger Corman did with Fantastic Four. To keep the rights to the movie, he filmed it. I think he originally had no intent of releasing it in the first place, but I think he was leaving the option on the table if it actually turned out good, but it didn't. So he canned it. 20 years later, Shout Factory goes, Corman, you want to get that paycheck now? And he was like, let's do it. So that actually might work out better, because you could get, when the Batgirl movie releases, this old one, you could get it as a work print on the Blu-ray or something.
It depends, because as far as I know, now again, I don't know, I don't speak legalese, all right? So my understanding is the reason why they're not he's not putting it out in theaters or whatever, because he says that the DC image has already been tarnished enough, and he's not going to put out anything below quality that will further, he's like, if we put this out, it's going to be more of what people already expect from us. That's what
Sure.
So he doesn't want to do that. And he said he doesn't want to just dump it on streaming, because apparently he feels that the only way he can recoup anything from it is just make it a tax write-off. But apparently, I guess when you make it a tax write-off, you can't recoup even a cent, or you can't profit a cent off of it. So he's not legally allowed to put it on stream. You cannot legally show it to anybody if you're going to just have it be a tax write-off.
They'll be able to get around it in probably like Corman did, in about 20 years, once they fully write off the investment. And then the movie Batgirl, you can write off in 20 years as a work print supplement to the other one. You can get around it doing it that way.
Okay.
The legalese on that one, I'm not 100% on, but I know that they've done it before, like I said, because they did it with Corman to keep the rights of Fantastic Four with his studio.
Okay. But I see this, though, and I get excited, because I'm kind of just like, as I've stated, as much as I enjoy my Marvel movies, when it comes to comics and these actual characters, I'm more of a DC guy. So I do feel like I'm been getting the shaft on my fucking movies. There's shit I like, there's stuff I like, but it's not nearly up to what Marvel's doing. And I feel you could do so much more. But so it feels like somebody's finally like, all right, enough's enough. Now, so like I said, that's the point where I sent you a message and I was on my high note. I'm like, okay. Apparently there was some sort of public shareholders meeting or something the other day that was making a lot of people thought HBO Max was gonna fucking it's not going anywhere. Why would it? Wouldn't make sense. But apparently a few things were elaborated on and announced. One thing that I've always wanted and thought, why the fuck isn't this a thing? because the Marvel movies have their own fucking studio, like it's their own company. Like, I
Right.
mean, yes, it's owned by Disney, but it's its own entity. DC never had that. There, it was just like a fucking couple corner offices at Warner Brothers Studios.
Yep.
We're finally getting our own DC fucking. It's its own fucking thing. And
That's a
I'm,
miracle.
yeah, I'm like, okay, all right. Now, another thing, which the one thing that he said that you would want more details on, of course, he gave no details on at all,
Classic.
which was after we get past the next three big movies, which were already in being done in some capacity before he took over. Getting that Shazam 2, you getting that Black Adam movie with The Rock.
Yeah.
And he did say that as of right now, they are still committed to putting out The Flash in theaters. Because they said, they're like, we understand the situation, but unfortunately, everybody that has seen this movie, because like I said, this shit's been done for like 2 years already. Like
Yeah.
complete, like done. Um, Everybody says like this is actually really good. Despite the
All of that.
situation. Yeah, they said this is actually a really good movie. And then having the comic book knowledge that I have, in the comics, the end of this Flashpoint story, they use as a leap off point to reboot all of the comic series. He said after they get through these three movies, the last of which being The Flash, they're going to do something with the ending of that, I believe. And they're rebooting the whole DCEU. They're starting over. Now, we don't know if that means he's recasting every single character. There was no details to that. But it kind of sounds like we're going to get a new person being Superman, a new Wonder Woman. And well, it sounds like everything's going to, we're like, all right. And he flat out said, I'm just going to copy what Marvel did. And he's like, I've set up a 10-year plan.
My hope. A lot of this DC bullshit could have been avoided if they had just done this one thing. Sit down. You can do it Joe Bob style with a. Well, no, I can't say that anymore because he's been toking the reefers too, apparently. Sit down with a smoke of your choice, a drink of your choice, and watch all 5 seasons of Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
Then ponder on it for a couple of days and say, how can I translate that to the big screen? Because I have never, in the iterations of the characters in the show too, I have never heard a single fucking complaint about Batman the Animated Series as a whole.
I have a DVD collection of it that I regularly have my kids watch.
Is it the one with the comic book panels on it and all?
Yep.
Yeah, I have the volume 1.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great show. Better than the Superman show, but the Superman show ain't really that bad, but it's just the Batman show is
Better. Yeah.
it's in its own league. But a lot of that could have been avoided. But here we are.
Now, the last thing that I'm going to touch on, because I could go on this whole, I've ingested so much knowledge the past week.
It wasn't really the Big Racket episode, it was the Big Studio episode.
Yeah. There was something else that was announced that I particularly didn't like. But a lot of what I don't like, I have to equate to a personal bias. But there is a legitimate question out of it that I wanted to pose to you.
Okay.
So there was one movie announcement confirmation yesterday, and that they are going to go forth and make a sequel to the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. Now, I liked that Joker movie for what it was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this is a good movie. Like, this is a good twist, a different take, a different style than what we're used to. I liked it, and I thought that it had a decent enough message about mental health and all that stuff. My only problems with it were is that I hope somebody can resist the temptation to dip too much into this, because I'm like, what could you possibly do with a sequel? Because it's like you cannot. I do not want to see this go the way of a comic book movie. I do not. There's no way I can visually picture that Joker going toe to toe with any form of Batman on the screen. It wouldn't visually look right to me.
Only the Batman that shot people from the 30s. I could see him
Yeah.
going up against that one because Joker was just the love child of King of Comedy and Taxi Driver
Mhm.
rolled into one, and it's perfect the way it is.
So I was like, but on the other hand, I'm like, that first Joker movie made him a shit ton of money. Of course they're gonna fucking do another one. Like of course
Milk
they're
that
gonna.
cow, baby.
So I'm like, all right, whatever. Now they said that they're going to apparently go the route of Harley Quinn, and that Lady Gaga is going to be Harley Quinn. Now, my personal taste in all of this is that the most politest way that I can put this is that I am not a fan of Lady Gaga. If you are, that's fine. I have no qualms with that. I'm not that kind of guy. Personal taste, I could do without her. However, that's not the question I'm posing. What I'm sitting here thinking is, regardless, I mean, I think that's a horrible choice, but it could be anybody. They're having anybody. They're doing Harley Quinn. It's not Margot Robbie. And you got to think she made that character. I mean, Harley Quinn was already popular, but she made it mainstream fucking popular.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are you going to have somebody else that's not her while she's still, I mean, I don't know if they've got any things lined up for her to be the character again, but you have to imagine that she wouldn't say no. At the very least, she would probably do it one, especially if it's a James Gunn thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, so you can't imagine her being done with the character. She only did it like 3 times, and the first of which, her applause, her acting was applauded, but the movie she was in was shit.
Well, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
was.
So it's like, why do you think that that's a bad idea to, like, I mean, I'm not saying put Margot Robbie in this. I don't think Harley Quinn should be in this. I don't think there should be a Joker too, personally. But that's the route they're gonna go. I mean, I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you have somebody else? Like, it's like you're taking the spotlight away from your one of your few money makers.
My issue with it is Harley or Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is the closest we've ever gotten to the animated series Harley Quinn in both forms, in the Harley Quinn form and in the Doctor form. She knocked it. I think she probably watched the show before she did it. I mean, she had to have because she was pretty spot on with it. Lady Gaga as an actor. I haven't seen the. I think she's in the Gotti movie. I haven't watched it yet, and that's a ensemble cast, and everybody is praising that part of it. So I'll give it a watch to because I've never really seen her act, so I can't. Was she in American Hustle? No, she wasn't in American.
She
Hustle.
was in American Horror Story.
I haven't watched that yet either, but
She was in
show.
a season for that. My only problem with her, and look, okay, I'm not the kind of guy to sit here and, like, pick apart a woman's features or how they look. I'm not that guy. But for like the next 30 seconds, I'm gonna be that guy.
And go.
She has a very deep voice, which is totally fine. I actually like women with deep voices, but she has an annoying deep voice to me. And then two, she looks like a combination of a mutated rat and the Arnold Schwarzenegger looking white dog from Tiny Toons crossed together. But I'm sure she's a wonderful person, like, to hang out with. Like I said,
she doesn't fit the look of the character to you.
well, I mean, one could argue that Joaquin Phoenix doesn't, I mean, other than the lankiness, but like the shit that he had to put himself through to achieve that. But those weren't digital effects, folks.
It's like like Christian Bale in The Machinist. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette and eat an apple, and that's my meal for the day. Fuck that.
Um, but I think that that's a mistake, especially when you're gearing to like tighten up on things and make things better. You know, I understand that the Joker made you a lot of money, but I'm like, I think that's a bad call. I can't agree with that one.
You're towing a very bad line with it. Most people dislike sequels because they see sequels as cash grabs, unless a story needs to be told. That's usually the asterisk everybody puts on it.
Mm-hmm.
The Godfather. Well, hell, you could follow that up pretty easy because there's a whole litany of material on that. But Alien. Well, that movie's perfect. We can't follow that one up. Aliens turns out to arguably be better for more people. I still prefer the first one. Same thing with Terminator as well. Terminator 2 is lauded as probably the best sci-fi sequel
Depends
ever.
on what kind of mood you're in the night you're watching. Like if you need that, Aliens 1, but if you need that, Aliens 2.
That's fair. Joker has a whole universe they can explore. But wasn't that story trying to be an origin story?
Kind of, but not like a canonized
Right.
because that's the thing is like the Joker doesn't really have a true 100% origin, or he's not supposed to anyway. I haven't really
Right.
been keeping up with current events, but um they were focusing their version, like Joaquin Phoenix Joker was a lot more closely to the Killing Joke story of
Yep.
Joker, which is just like that's like kind of like its own little thing. It's not super canon, you know, because it I mean, some elements I think kind of are because I know Barbara. It's weird because of the
It.
whole Oracle thing, but
Yeah.
it ties a kind of origin to the Joker, which that part is not canon. That he shouldn't
Right.
have a definitive origin. That's kind of his thing. Is nobody knows. That's what I liked about fucking Heath Ledger. Is every time he told the Scar story, it was fucking different, just
Yep.
like the Joker. And I'm like, that's fucking perfect.
And that was my point. 100%. Even if you're going to use Joaquin Phoenix as Joker in the Batman movie, which is a terrible fucking idea. It was a one shot. It was the Joker origin that they wanted to tell in Joker. A grimy New York City Joker. Joker 2, you can't do. Well, you can, but I'm going to put a big fucking asterisk on it. You can't do a villain story 2 times in a row. Because the story would have to center around the Joker, the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And if he starts doing bad shit, you're not going to connect with his character. You're going to connect with whoever's chasing him, who's going to be in the movie for 20 minutes. And that's going to cause that's probably going to cause issues.
You're going to bleed into dangerous territory of trying to convey the Joker as some sort of anti-hero, and he's not I mean, he's a very fun character. Him and Harley are very fun characters, and you do like them. You're not supposed to root for them. Like, you can enjoy them, but they need to fail at the end of the day. They can win a round or two, but they have to lose the overall war.
It reminds me of a meme that you can put about 5 characters from movies into it, and it fits. If you watched Fight Club, and the character you look up to and connect to the most is Tyler Durden, you missed the whole point of the movie. Put that in with Patrick Bateman, or De Niro's character from Taxi Driver, or, I mean, you can pretty much put any piece of shit character. Well, I'm not going to say piece of shit because those were well acted, but you know what I mean. Like, you can put any bad character in that thing. You can't make your audience connect like that, because if they are connecting like that, that's probably not a good thing.
I just had a random thought, and I don't know if this applies or not, but would you say that American History X is kind of like the, you know, for dummies version of that, where it's like, listen, idiot, this is why you shouldn't like this character.
Yeah, that's the ELI 5. Yeah, yeah. That one's so on the nose, and people still fucking missed it. Which Jesus Christ. But yeah, Joker as a standalone story, you sympathize. Some people probably empathized with him up to a certain point, and then when he makes that full transformation, which we always like to call on the show the point of no return for the character, where you
Mhm.
can't redeem yourself. When that happens, I was on the first time I watched the movie, I was on a flight to Alaska,
Oh shit.
and I watched that in Goodfellas back to back. It was awesome, best in-flight movies ever. Um, when that happened, and when he shoots the guy on the fucking show, because the guys on the train, yeah, I kind of get that because that can happen. But going out and just that's straight up murder on the show. Your character is now no longer redeemable, and I was uncomfortable on the flight at that point because I knew there wasn't a whole lot of movie left and what they were probably going to do. And there you go, there's your Joker. That's great as a one-off.
Yep.
You cannot go beyond that because you already know it's the Joker. You can't the Joker cannot be redeemed. I can't think of any comic, and Hush is one of the greatest redemption comics ever too. If you know how that one ends, I can't think of a time that Joker really redeemed himself. Giving information up to give another criminal up ain't redeeming yourself.
The best you get is those very few moments where they show the Joker and Batman kind of having their like moment of understanding one another. But then that once that's over, then things go right back to normal. It's like, all right, buddy, back to the asylum. You know what I mean? But
Oh,
it's
and
like,
Killing Joke.
or any there. I mean,
Oh
any
yeah,
version of it. But yeah, that one came to mind where they both laughed at the end and had like
yeah.
that little just kind of moment.
That's
But
so
yeah,
ominous.
yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's very true though. It's like I love that, and I think they even used that line in Daredevil. I think the Punisher says it to Daredevil when they're fighting on the fucking rooftop in season 2, where he's like, you're just one bad day away from being me. And it's moments where the Joker is essentially telling that to Bruce and him like, I know. But
It's the
but
human.
that day has still yet to come. And until that day comes, that's his counter. That and it's always that. It's always that.
And I like that because that's the one time that Joker really shows humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And or a real human connection, not the Stockholm syndrome Harley Quinn shit.
Right. But yeah. So like I said, I could go on. I'm sure that more crazy debacles over at the WB and HBO and Time Warner and Discovery and Krispy Kreme and Subway and McDonald's and all of them. Dairy Queen. I don't know why I think I'm getting the munchies. But
That'll happen.